wide one. Very welcome to the soft and system size to sales. And today we're talking about what makes a successful sales meeting. We've all been there. We all understand what it's like when things don't go well in a sales meeting or it's a waste of our time. So let's have a look at this and have a really good in-depth discussion. Hello, welcome back, everyone. Look, every week we discuss different areas of sales in the whole stratosphere. But today, I think it's quite important if you have a successful sales meeting and everyone is all prepared, everyone knows what they're doing. But on the flip side of it, like we've all been there, I've been there definitely lots of times in other organizations when I've had a sales manager or the managing director or whatever is doing a very bad meeting. Everyone feels dejected. Everyone feels demotivated. No one knows what is happening with the organization. You don't know where you are. So there's certain things that we possibly can do to make things better. So Shay, good to see you again. And I'm delighted to have this wonderful conversation. So question. What's the most disastrous meeting that you've ever been in? Sales meeting?
Well, Jason, where do I start, Jason? Like, as you said, we've all been through that pain. And sometimes it's as a sort of spectator, but sometimes it's been also in the thick of it, Jason. But it's not, I wouldn't say I've had like really, really bad meetings, but I've had meetings where leaders don't take accountability for what things should be happening, or saying, oh, the directors have said we have to get 20% more sales, and not take it as you're part of that and distance themselves. They're not leading by example, Jason. And this is something that makes me feel shivers when I see it happening, and I see it regularly, because if you don't take accountability, if you don't be a leader, how do you expect people to follow you? How do you expect people to believe in you, Jason? So like what I always talk about when it comes to sales, it's about building your meeting strategy. Like you can't just go in a meeting, you have your weekly meetings and then you talk about this and you talk about that. And like they're just meetings, Jason. There has to be a purpose driven meeting. And it's not just one meeting. There has to be multiple meetings that have different outputs to it, Jason. So there has to be that meeting strategy, and you can't have meetings. We're all inundated with meetings in this present hybrid world that we work in. So they have to be really purposeful and effective. And that starts with leadership, Jason, and taking the bull by the horns.
Absolutely. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So if you're having something specific, so specific for sales meeting. So sales meeting, there's certain things that you have to prepare in advance, rather than just going in there all slapdash and going, well, what have you done this week? And no one's really prepared. They should obviously know where they are. But I would suggest is planning in advance. Maybe you put a deck together. Maybe you have something that you can share within the calendar invite, if it's virtual, as an example. So you have a calendar invite and you have attached to that the deck of what you're going to present, so everyone can review what's going to be said. Maybe a little bit of an icebreaker. Icebreakers are phenomenal. Just relaxes people down. So make it a bit fun. Make it a little bit interactive. Do something silly. Do something fun. get the brain going, stand up, shake your legs, or do something that is going to be a little bit different to start that meeting, so everyone is ready for the main agenda. So it could be business, you could be top level at how we're doing as an organization, depending on the size of your organization. So that could be just like high level news of what's actually happening in the organization. Things might be changing around, but that should be listed down within the deck, so people are aware of the agenda, so people already know in advance of what we're going to do. So there's other facets around that. So what else would you put in that deck?
Well, there's a few things, Jason, right? Like, obviously, when you come to, and I totally agree, by the way, like, to make the meetings fun. I'm a big believer in this world. People want to be entertained, and that's just the way it is. The more you entertain, the more productive and happy they are, right? And that's just a fact, Jay. So I'm a big believer in creating a really good environment for any type of meeting that you're involved in, right? So first of all, Jason, if we look at the standard meetings, first and foremost, you're absolutely right. You need to have a specific agenda, right? So one of the big ones you'd have on a weekly basis is all about targets, right?
Yeah.
So look, when you have targets, then you look at, see, well, what worked well, what didn't work well, right? So you have the meeting to discuss what's going on real time, okay? But then it's about next steps. So always a part of an agenda has to be next steps. And then you have follow-up meetings, Jason. So you need to understand what is working well. So if you have a sales team of maybe, just keep it simple, 10, or those people are performing and they're getting good results. The question I want to know is, why are they getting good results, right? Number one, we need to document that. So I want to break out a team and have another meeting with those people to find out what is working well. What are they doing differently than the others? So we can share that knowledge, right? And then obviously for the other, maybe 3 or 4 are just doing okay. They're in there just about getting the targets. But then there's the part of the team that are not going to be performing, right? I then want to have a meeting with them to find out why they're not performing. Why aren't their customers not buying off them? So then, Jason, I'm going to have another meeting with them. But here's the thing, Jason. So that meeting is like a hierarchical process where you start off with talking about the what. Then you need to go into the how after that. And then where these meetings, Jason, are all collaborative. Like, they're like brainstorming sessions sometimes. And then within those, you set an agenda to find out what works well, what didn't, what are we going to do next? And then how we keep that focus on measuring on a weekly basis so we can get a little bit better every single week. So that, to me, Jason, especially when it comes to sales, is so important. Now, that's totally anti-sales people, because they don't like meetings. They don't like formalities. They don't like being involved. They're very independent. But here's the thing, Jason, once they can see that whenever they do this has an impact for the better, for their bottom line, they can buy into it very quickly.
Yeah, I think that's so very important. Another key factor for this is time. Like, if you suggest or say within the meeting 30 minutes or 1 hour, whatever it might be, this is our time. We want you to arrive early. We want to finish on time. That is it. This is the agenda. We're going to be finishing 30 minutes. We're not going to be running over 45 minutes, an hour, waffling on about this, that, and the other. It's got to be quite specific. People have to give specific answers, but also showing up. But it's not always about the manager to lead the meeting, because it's a collaborative effect. And what I want to do is highlight certain people. And what I want to do is next week, Shay, what I'd like you to do is bring in something that really is quite powerful that you do on a regular basis that works. So like a 5-minute presentation on that point. And then I want John to do that. And then I want Patrick to, or Josephine, or whoever, different topic every week. So it empowers someone else to come up with that. But we do have that set agenda, and it will be 30 minutes. After the 30 minutes, we're switching off. The one-to-ones after that, that's when me as a sales manager will have that conversation with my team member to find out what other challenges there might be. Then we can bring it back into next week's meeting, or we have a cliffhanger at the end of the week or the beginning of the following week of these are the things that's happened. Maybe other stuff in the organization, maybe news in the industry that might be relevant, stuff for people to learn, and then prep for whatever day that you have your meeting. I don't think it really matters which day you have it, as long as you have it. I think that's the most critically important thing to have.
Yeah, it has to be consistent, Jason. And you're right. There's time for that collaborative work that we just talked about, but you're absolutely spot on. There has to be those one-on-ones because, like, sometimes when people are not getting their targets, it's not just because their process is wrong. There could be something else that they need help with, and you only find that information out one-on-ones. If you're a leader, Jason, and this is like relevant to across the board, right? I always talk about you need to be spending at least 40% of your time with your team, both one-on-ones and in group settings. And that helps then formulate their process, their calendars for the week. Because when you don't have those one-on-ones, Jason, right? If you're too busy, you always say I'm too busy, right? Then things get out of skew. They keep going further. You don't have, and then 6 weeks or 2 months down the line, things are way out of sync and out of kilter. And it takes a lot to get it back in. But when you do these regularly and they're very purposeful, there's actions, there's improvements, there's new things you're going to try, then you can measure, tweak, and improve on a regular basis and developing. And I'll tell you now, Jason, no matter how bad a salesperson you are, right? And I'm not saying you are, right? But like if
hold on a minute, hold on.
I'll put that. I meant to, I can turn a poor performing salesperson into a good performing over time by following the process with, as you always talk about, those really strong touch points with the customer. And that's how you build strong credibility with your clients and therefore trust. And then the consequence of that trust is they're going to come with you as opposed to the competition. But that takes work. That's a journey, Jason. These meetings are part of a journey and they should be used purposefully and sparingly. You cannot overdo the meetings because then you don't have time to do your day-to-day job.
No, there's also got to be a bit of a follow-up after the meeting. So the start is the prep. Share the content, the context of the meeting agenda. Spend a bit of time putting the slides together, what's going to be covered, who's going to be speaking. Then, I think very importantly, is the follow-up. No excuses why people are not going to attend the meeting unless it's they're away that week or they're sick or whatever. But that meeting's scheduled at that particular time. Everyone shows up. You have to show up. Don't care. I've had all the excuses under the sun. I've got to do this. I'm so close to this, that, and the other, and I can't make it because whatever's. No, that's the meeting. You arrive, 30 minutes, we're going to be done. Schedule your other meetings around that. What I was going to say is at the end of every meeting, you just do a quick follow-up. This is the things that we discussed. These are the actions that you're going to be making. And this is the follow-up for next week. We'll be doing our normal one-to-ones. Schedule that for 20 minutes or whatever, half an hour, whatever that by every person. This is the set agenda for everyone to help on learning, because every week it's got to be learning something new, learning something from the team. Every week it's got to be a continuous cycle. The other thing I was thinking about is to gain credibility with your team, gain trust, gain connection. There's got to obviously be a bit of rapport between the team, collaboration with everyone. So we're all working for the common purpose, not someone going off on their own. Within sales, there's obviously the normal egos, but keep those in check because we all need to be finishing off and we all need to be working as a team. So psychological safety within what we say stays in the room. Outside of the room, you just carry on doing your numbers, doing your calls, doing whatever you need to do to close those deals.
Yeah, and that's it, Jason. And I always say, I know you call it follow-up. It's the same thing. I always say, what's next steps? What's next steps? And then, as you said, then you record them, you detail, and you put the meeting in for those next steps to review how they went. Another thing I like to do, Jason, like as you said, a lot of salespeople, they've got their egos, but they're also very individualistic. They're very independent, right? And that's all well and good. Somebody can do very, very well in that guise. But here's the thing, Jason, right? I know, and you know, that when you bring teams together to collaborate, it's amazing what you can do, the synergy between a team.
Yeah.
I always find starting that off with sales teams a little bit more difficult, but when you find that sweet spot, because they get buy-in because they can relate it to money and sales, right?
Yeah.
So it starts hard, but it finishes well. And I give you a really good example. Like we were doing, and I always encourage brainstorming sessions with all the team. And as you said, get them in the mood first before you do that brainstorming, get them enjoying the conversation.
I was going to say, Shay, based on that, I think there should be two separate meetings based on the sales meeting is the sales meeting and it's done in a particular way. And another meeting is for learning, brainstorming, sharing ideas, what is working, how can we help, how can we do this, that, and the other. So it's down to the organization that you're working. Every team is slightly different. So we have to look at, if it's a small team, you might be doing one meeting, you might be incorporated into the brainstorming, or you have the sales functions and you're accountable for your actions and these are the targets, but it's a collaborative approach. Then you might have, and I've done both of them, but it does depend on your organization. If it's a larger organization, you might have a brainstorming stroke learning stroke something else. You might get some speaker in, you might have an L&D learning development department that might be helping on specific areas. So it all does depend, but the core, exactly what you said, is to get people to work with each other.
Yeah.
And also, not only that, get other areas of the business to work with the sales team. Oh no, we don't want to work with accounts. Oh no, we don't want to work with marketing. But that's equally as important to collaborate and gel as a unit. So we're all fighting forward.
They should be all moving the same direction, working together for the greater good and to make it better. Because marketing and sales, like the marketing lead generation is traditionally in a marketing team. It's the start of the sales funnel, right? Mm-hmm. So they should be one and the same. They should have common and complementary metrics and KPIs as opposed to contradictory, what I see a lot of. But I always, as you said, Jason, what I always love to do is get them in a room. And if I'm struggling to get them to do something, let's build a process map. Let's start building it step by step of how we do sales. And I'll tell you, Jason, we come up with some amazing ideas. The best one I've ever seen is normally me putting my efficiency hat on. I like to take out processes if they're not, or steps in the process if they're not adding value. But one person, we had what you said, we brought other people into this process mapping session. So we had some from purchasing, we had the quality manager here, and the quality manager just said something. Sure, every time I'm involved in the sale, we get a sale. Yeah. And then, do you know what? We actually looked back in the statistics and he was absolutely right, because that was a joke he said in the meeting to slag the salespeople. I'm better than you. So guess what we did? We actually added a step in the process where the sales jobs, the rep's role was not to get the sale, was to say, look, let's talk to our quality manager. These were supplying pharmaceutical ingredients to the pharmaceutical industry, the sector. And first of all, that's an easier sell to just get the quality managers to talk, right? And then when the quality managers had a really good conversation, the next touch point with the sales rep and whatever contact, the purchasing rep in the business, that was an easier conversation. It actually, the amount of sales they got, the increase they went from about, I can't remember, was it about 30 odd conversion rates up to 65 within a few months, and over a 6-month period, they got up to close to 80%. And that is by adding an extra step that added value. We would have never been able to come up with that if I couldn't get them in a room. And here's the thing, Jason, the funniest thing at all the sales rep became the best friends of the quality manager. They were teaching him how to talk to customers. And I didn't have to do any of this. I just started the process and then they work together. They created those relationships.
That's such a good thing to do, and especially if you have a big whiteboard and post-it notes, and then get the teams to do it. It is a learning environment, so get everyone to write things down and stick up the notes, and then you can all collaborate together. Make it fun. Make it do it for half a day. I think we might have discussed that before about planning. But it's also it's not only planning, it's also teaching as well, getting everyone involved, and then you're all part of the team, but you're all learning and go, well, I didn't think of that before. Maybe that's a really good maybe that's a really good way of doing it, because it's at the end of what we're doing, we're all servicing the client and we're all giving value forward. And that's exactly what we want to do as professionals in this industry, is give value. And if we find a better and easier way of giving a softer value with a better into that client's needs, that's, we hit the mark. And hitting the mark, I think we've hit the mark for the day. Yeah. Oh, that was did you notice that? That was very slick.
Very slick and very quick. It didn't feel like 20 minutes, Jason. I'll tell you that much now.
Yeah, it didn't at all. So a very quick synopsis of today's session.
Well, the few things I would like people to take away with: have purposeful meetings in the team environment, the one-on-one, and what I always say, the problem solving or the brainstorming. Keep those meetings aligned. Have different structures and different meetings, but make sure there's a hierarchy and they work together to make it better, Jason.
Awesome. I would add, keep to the times, show up, plan in advance of the meeting, not always lead the meeting, get other people to lead the meeting, and always follow up afterwards with what has been said and make people accountable for their actions. So again, thank you once again, Shay. It's been another awesome session.
Pleasure, Jason. Thank you.
We shall see you on the next one.
Thanks. Bye-bye.